In the number 10 spot, we have Skulk. Ironically, my parents called me the Incredible Skulk when I was young and a big troublemaker, ha ha ha. The Skulk debuted in 1996 and was the result of a crossover between Marvel's Hulk and DC's Solomon Grundy in the Amalgam Universe, a universe characterized by, surprise, its amalgamations. Skulk was created when a genius scientist Bruce Banner was experimenting with gamma bombs in the desert, a vaguely familiar story. When Solomon Grundy, the elemental, comes whistling along, the explosion ends up combining the two into a purple pant-wearing powerhouse. Coming in at number 9 is Old Man Logan Hulk. In the 2009 graphic novel Old Man Logan, which follows an old and tired Wolverine trying to live peacefully in a world controlled by supervillains, Hulk gets to take a spin on the bad guy team. An elderly Bruce Banner, head of the Hulk gang that destroyed Wolvie's family, decides he and his vicious beast Hulk form have developed a taste for Wolverine. Too bad he's apparently never watched Alien, because while he may swallow Wolverine whole, that only led to one major case of indigestion, to put it nicely. Next up at number 8, we got Joe Fixit. We all know Hulk as the exploding ball of green rage that he is today, but Stan Lee's Hulk was not this depiction originally. The Hulk was actually supposed to be gray from the get-go because Stan Lee didn't want him associated with any ethnic group. Not sure what ethnic group green would have been related to in the first place. Now, due to ink problems, Hulk was changed to a green skin tone, but the gray Hulk was reintroduced in the Incredible Hulk 347 as Joe Fixit. Rather than just a raging monster, Fixit is calculating, manipulative, and wants nothing more than to be surrounded by women and wealth. He's not as physically capable as the original Hulk, but his brain is a lot more intact and he is a lot more sinister.
Number 7. Deadpool Dinosaur. Deadpool Dinosaur might seem like a T-Rex version of Deadpool, and in a way he is, but it's a bit more complicated than that. He's actually an amalgamation of Deadpool and Devil Dinosaur from Earth 78411, who gain powers from being burned alive, and he travels with his companion Moon Boy. Deadpool Dinosaur seems to have similar powers, presumably also with Deadpool's healing factor, with a Moon Boy decked out in army garb on his back. Do I really have to explain why a T-Rex version of Deadpool is awesome? I didn't think so.
Coming in at number 6, we have the Green Scar. This 2006 Planet Hulk version of Hulk is considered the most powerful Hulk out there. Hulk, 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 Hulk. When a heroic group named the Illuminati decided Hulk was too dangerous to live on Earth, they sent him off to a planet called Sakaar. Almost immediately, the poor guy was enslaved and forced to fight as a gladiator. This version is smarter than the typical savage yet again, and in control of his rage so it doesn't blind him. He also has less inner conflicts than most versions of Hulk, which is probably why he ends up being so damn OP. Next up at number 5 is Aboriginal Hulk. In 2005's House of M, Scarlet Witch threw us all a curveball with a simple phrase made of 3 words: no more mutants. As a result, Bruce Banner is forced to flee from General Thunderbolt Ross and ends up joining a group of Aboriginal people in the Australian outback. Here he takes up a vow of peace and tries to zen his way to a normal life, but as we all know, that isn't quite possible for poor Banner. Magneto soon takes over Australia and Hulk is called back into action. This guy cannot catch a break. Up next at number 4, we have Hulk 2099. The 2099 universe was short-lived but gave birth to a few memorable characters, one of them being Hulk 2099 in 1993. Instead of being Bruce Banner, this particular version is named John Eisenhart, and he is a movie studio executive. After reporting a group of Hulk worshippers to the police, Eisenhart began to feel bad about his actions and joined the worshippers, known as the Knights of Banner. A later gamma explosion turned Eisenhart into his own version of the Hulk, complete with a very Venom-esque tongue. Perfect for tasting all those Wolverines several years later.
Number 3. Kenshiro Cochran. Kenshiro Cochran, or Ghost Rider 2099. Kenshiro Zero Cochran was a hacker who was facing death for stealing information from the D-Monix Corporation. But before he was killed, he downloaded his mind to cyberspace. Here it was found by artificial intelligences called the Ghostworks, who asked Zero to be their champion in the real world. So he was downloaded into a powerful robot body with a number of abilities like super strength and durability. His hands could also transform, allowing him to create a chainsaw that shoots energy and a claw that can slice on a subatomic level. And he had advanced stealth technologies. Riding a futuristic looking motorcycle, Ghost Rider 2099 was one of the most unique and one of the coolest versions ever.
Coming in at number 2, we've got Hulkpool. Seriously, gotta love these crossovers. In 2010, Marvel released Hulked Out Heroes, a mini-series part of the World War Hulk's crossover. One of the Hulked Out heroes was a cross of Deadpool and Hulk called Hulkpool, and what a delight he was. Hulkpool takes part in a time-traveling adventure where he lands in the midst of World War II. Being the ultra hero that he was, he effectively wiped out Adolf Hitler. He also single-handedly managed to screw around with almost every Marvel superhero's origins, but thankfully that's why they call them an alternate universe. And finally, in the number 1 spot is the Mighty Hulk. This version of Hulk is actually the original from 1960, before the days of Bruce Banner and the Green Savage. Albert Poole made his debut in Strange Tales number 75. He was a spiteful man who created a giant robot that he can operate from the inside, but he accidentally locks himself in, at least conveniently with a lifetime's worth of food and water capsules. The character was later renamed Grutan to avoid confusion, but classifies as the very first Hulk that existed in comic book pages.
In at number 10, Cap Wolf. Back in 1992 in Captain America issue 402, Cap became a werewolf. Yep. So for context, at this point in time, John Jameson, the son of J.J. Jameson, who also happened to be Cap's personal pilot, was a werewolf. And after a body shows up in the woods and John goes missing, Cap goes on a hunt for him. Long story short, he stumbles into a town rotten with werewolves and ends up getting injected by a serum that turns him into one. Because he already has a super soldier serum in him, Cap is able to keep his mind intact while in werewolf form, and learns from mutant Wolfsbane how to communicate. He's held captive, but eventually comes up with a plan to escape. And since, Cap Wolf has reoccurred a few times in the comics. It's worth noting that this is the only alternate version of the hero that appears in the 616 continuity on our list. Moving on to one that doesn't though, in at number 9, President Rogers from the Ultimate Universe. In the Ultimate Universe, Earth 1610, Steve Rogers' origins are quite similar to his 616 counterpart, except his abilities, thanks to the serum, have been bumped up to superhuman, particularly his strength. The hero can bend steel with his bare hands, he can jump extremely long distances, and can even catch trees heavy enough to smash a jeep. He can heal from gunshots and knife wounds within a matter of hours and heal broken bones within a day. When he's thawed out in present day, he ends up joining the Ultimates, this universe's version of the Avengers, and eventually in Ultimate Comics Ultimates, he ends up becoming president after Barack Obama is killed. And at number 8, The Chosen. Strength isn't just superficial muscle, friends. This version of Steve Rogers is living proof of that. Or technically, unliving now. Captain America: The Chosen was a story that came out in 2007 and explored a storyline inspired by the tragedy of 9/11. A soldier who's sent to Afghanistan, US Marine Corps Private James Newman, begins his first tour of duty, and Steve Rogers' spirit joins him on the battlefield as a guardian angel of sorts. This is all while the real Steve Rogers, now old and bedridden, slowly dies in a hospital. By the end of it, old Steve passes away, but his spirit ends up living on, personifying the American spirit, with the US government having come up with the device that allows him to project his spirit all over the planet. It's definitely a different kind of power for the hero, but one that suits his patriotic identity well, and makes him a powerful symbol to many real-life heroes in need.
In the number 7 spot is Professor Hulk. Also known as the Merged Hulk. Hulk is not known for his brains except for a few occasions, but this version of the Hulk revealed in 1991's Incredible Hulk 377 is anything but dumb. Professor Hulk came around when a visit to psychiatrist Doc Samson effectively consolidates Bruce Banner, Savage Hulk, and Grey Hulk, creating a near-perfect Hulk that is physically as well as emotionally strong and stable. It seems to be the perfect solution to helping Banner get through the trauma of losing his mother to his father, but in the end was just a temporary solution, because what fun is a character finally at peace.
And at number 6, Carol Danvers from Earth 2301. Earth 2301 is the manga-verse, and in it there is a Steve Rogers, but he too assumes the role of the US president. Carol Danvers also takes up the mantle though. Unlike her 616 counterparts, she seemingly does not have her human Kree physiology, but still possesses super strength and near invulnerability, having survived a plane crash, taken a sword blow to the back, and had electricity pumped through her body, all of which gave her no long-term injuries. Having been a part of the US Air Force that was stationed in Japan, Carol finds herself gaining her superpowers after her base was destroyed and she was attacked. Now these potentially dormant powers were activated and she ends up taking on the Hand, and even rescues Spider-Man in the process right before he's supposed to be executed. And at number 5, Zombie Colonel America. Zombie Colonel America has all of the abilities as the 616 Captain America. Plus, he's a zombie. While there wasn't much context given on what Steve's life was like prior to the zombie plague, one thing is different about his backstory. He too served as the President of the United States. Definitely picking up on a theme here, you guys. He and other members of the Avengers become infected when trying to fight off zombified Sentry. But good old Cap, after his zombie appetite is satiated for a little bit, he and other Avengers still attempt to brainstorm how to stop the plague, which doesn't really work out because he and other members end up going on a killing spree when it's discovered that Latveria area contains a ton of grub for him and his zombie pals to mow down on. In at 4, Captain America, Earth 1298. From the Mutant X universe, this version of Cap isn't Steve Rogers. Rather, he's an unnamed mutant who ends up taking up the mantle of the hero. Now, the original Captain America was killed in a Sentinel attack at the Avengers Mansion. This unnamed version is given the Super Soldier Serum, which, while it makes him insanely strong and amplifies his mutant powers so that he can increase his mass, strength, is capable of telepathy, creating force fields, and is near invulnerable, it also makes him insane, and his mutant powers flare uncontrollably.
Number 3. Iron Woman. In the reality of Earth 3490, Tony Stark was instead born Natasha Stark, and goes on to become the superhero Iron Woman. I really like this version for a couple reasons. For one, there are really few versions of Stark where he's a female, so that's neat to see. Plus, this change was hugely significant in terms of plot. Since Stark was romantically involved with Steve Rogers and eventually married him, the Civil War storyline never took place. It's a really cool version and a pretty well thought out storyline.
Up next, number 2, Super Soldier. From the Amalgam Comics. Superman is arguably the most powerful metahuman in the DC universe. Arguably. So, combine all of the Man of Steel's abilities with Steve Rogers' mind and damn, that's one hell of a deadly superhero. Meet Clark Kent, the Super Soldier from the Amalgam Comics, a series in which DC and Marvel Comics amalgamated their heroes. Clark Kent is given a Super Soldier Serum that was created from DNA that was harvested from the corpse of baby Kal-El. Little dark, eh? The serum gives Clark all of his Superman powers. He's later frozen in ice at the end of World War II, revived decades later, and then returns to the mantle. And finally, in at number 1, Soldier Supreme. What's stronger than a Captain America crossover with Superman? Well, how about one who crosses over with the Sorcerer Supreme? Superman ain't got nothing on magic. Enter Soldier Supreme, one of the most recent alternate universe Steve Rogers creations. This one, who appeared in the Infinity Wars story event, was the product of Gamora using the Infinity Stones to fold the universe in half, amalgamating many characters into one persona and putting them into the warp world inside of the Soul Gem. Such was the case with Steve Rogers and Stephen Strange. They became Steven Rogers, a man in World War II who volunteered for an experimental procedure from the US Army, in which he was injected with a Super Soldier Serum that turns out was actually a cover for mystic rituals. Steven gets all of the strength he got from the serum in the 616 universe, but also gains the ability to wield powerful magic. Unlike the 616 Cap, instead of being frozen in ice for years, he gets trapped in the Dark Dimension, while combating Red Skull's amalgam, Dormammu Red, but eventually gets out when a cult on Earth opens up the dimension in a failed attempt to summon Satan.
Number 10. Iron Ghost. Iron Ghost was a member of the Black Legion in Age of Apocalypse. He's a fusion of Iron Man and Ghost Rider, and let's be real, he looks really fierce. Wearing the armor of Iron Man and wielding the chains of Ghost Rider, he fights alongside the rest of the Black Legion, including Orange Hulk, Manphibian, and Demon Hawk. This is actually a really sick team. It's kind of a blast seeing them in action, and Iron Ghost, although kinda crappily named, is pretty damn cool. Number 9. Hell Driver. Hell Driver is basically Ghost Rider meets Dukes of Hazzard, and he's pretty awesome. When he was introduced, we saw him chasing after 2 vampires who had kidnapped 2 people and were disguised as a sheriff and deputy. With the help of Devil Rig, the trucker Ghost Rider, Hell Driver tried to chase the villains down. Hell Driver was a short-lived creation that we didn't get much of a chance to learn about, but he drove a muscle car, which was so sick I couldn't not include him on this list. Number 8. Ghost Rider Man. In Secret Wars 2 TOO Issue 1, we were introduced to the ridiculous Earth 617. Here, Spider-Man's Uncle Ben killed Glider Man's Uncle Glenn to get his money. But it turns out that's okay because Uncle Glenn was going to kill Slider Man's Uncle Sven. But oh wait, turns out Uncle Sven lost control of a steamroller and rolled over healthcare provider man's Uncle Ken, which it turns out was okay because Albert Camus' The Outsider Man came to say that Uncle Ken was about to kill his Uncle Den. A bunch of other men showed up, including Large Hadron Super Collider Man, Ringbinder Divider Man, and Zack Snyder Man. But the one we're concerned with right now is Ghost Rider Man, who comes in and just says, "I'm Ghost Rider Man, vengeance!" Ghost Rider Man was a super small part of the comic. This is just an excuse to plug Secret Wars 2 because it's awesome, so go read it.
And at 7, Vampire Cap. In the Exiles universe, Earth 3931, Captain America gets turned into a vampire after he's infected by Baron Blood, all during World War II. Because of this, he ends up turning all of his other Avengers teammates into vampires as well. The Exiles appear with the intention of fixing this reality, but eventually Rogers and his team of vampires end up being defeated, with Rogers personally being decapitated by one of Wolverine's claws. But having no head did not stop Steve. He ended up reattaching his head to his body. The Super Soldier Serum, combined with his vampirism, amplified amplified his strength, stamina, reflexes, and agility, and even allowed him to teleport. In addition to that, he's got an incredibly strong healing factor. Clearly, he'd need one in order to survive getting his head cut off.
6. Nema, last name unspecified. Nema was a Tibetan ghost rider, modeled after a deity from Tibetan Buddhism. Known to his people as Krog Thung, he defended the innocent and punished the wicked using his powers, including his version of the penance stare called the Stare of 1,000 Buddhas. The coolest thing about Nema is that he rode a flaming horse, which is absolutely the coolest way for a ghost rider to get around. So sick. Number 5. SHOBA MIRZA. Okay, scrap that, a flaming elephant is way cooler. SHOBA MIRZA was a version of Ghost Rider that presumably came from India based on the name and the fact that she rides a freaking elephant. SHOBA was an important part of the comics because she, in a way, introduced Daniel Ketch to the idea that there were other spirits of vengeance out there. She initially sought him out looking for help, but when she realized that he had descended into drunkenness, she ended up actually saving him. When she was mortally wounded, she got Ketch to absorb her powers into himself, which freed her from her torment. Did I mention that she rides a flaming elephant and that she has 4 arms? Seriously awesome. Number 4. Ghost Rider. Yep, gotta have the larval Earth version. This Ghost Rider of Earth 8311 is one of the famous anthropomorphic heroes that we've seen in other alternative lists, and he's pretty ridiculous looking. His exploits are rather strange, getting angry when kids use his bike to roast marshmallows and killing the villain Chainsaw by dropping an anvil on him. He was later transported into the Secret Furs by the bee yonder. Yeah, Secret Furs is supposed to be the animal version of Secret Wars. Weak.
In the number 3 spot is the Maestro. 100 years into the future and the big guy is still around, but things have taken a turn for the worse, as they usually do. Nuclear war has ravaged the planet, and all who survived are under the iron-fisted rule of the Maestro, the Incredible Hulk future imperfect star of 1992. He's driven mad by the loss of his friends and continued radiation exposure, and lives for not much more than torturing those who oppose him. He's only brought to justice by a visit from his time-traveling modern-day counterpart. Try and picture that battle, if you will.
Number 2. ROBBIE REYES. ROBBIE REYES was a really neat Ghost Rider because his powers came from a different source. Rather than being possessed by a spirit of vengeance, he shares his body with the spirit of a Satan-worshipping serial killer named Eli Morrow. He does have many of the same abilities, creating fire, fighting with chains, and banishing dudes to hell, but he rides a frickin' 69 Dodge Charger called the Hell Charger, and it's awesome. Of course it is. ROBBIE REYES has been a pretty great Ghost Rider, and really shone in the Ghost Racer series. Definitely suggest reading those, they're pretty good. Number 1. Daniel Ketch. Daniel Ketch is probably the most influential version of Ghost Rider other than Johnny Blaze himself. Ketch became Ghost Rider as a teenager and took to the streets as a Ghost Rider, even fighting with Hulk, Spider-Man, and Wolverine in the new Fantastic Four. He was pursued for a time by Johnny Blaze, thinking he was the spirit of Zarathos. Blaze soon learned that this wasn't the case. He later went on a crusade in the name of Zadkiel, the Mad Angel, thinking that he was taking the powers of other riders to prevent their corruption. In reality, Zadkiel was using him in hopes of using the powers to wage war on heaven, something that Ketch learned the hard way. He did redeem himself though, turning around and joining the other spirits of vengeance to defeat Zadkiel before he could do too much damage. Ketch was a sick Ghost Rider who has been a very popular version since he was first introduced. Number 10. Iron Mandrill. If you've watched our other alternative version list, you'll be well versed in the ridiculous ways of Marvel apes. Iron Man's equivalent in the ape universe was one of the most clever names in the comic, Iron Mandrill. It's not bad. Anthony Stark is a member of the Ape Vengers who uses a high-tech battlesuit to fight enemies. While not the coolest looking member of the Ape Vengers, I'd be remiss if I didn't include Tony's monkey version, because it looks silly and he does a pretty good job in his heroics. Number 9. Iron Lantern. In the Amalgam series we saw Iron Lantern, the amalgamation of Tony Stark's Iron Man and Hal Jordan's Green Lantern. Wearing a green suit of armor, he goes around with the best of both sets of tech. While the Iron Man tech may seem redundant next to the powers of the Lantern, Tony's brains are definitely an advantage. It was a pretty neat combination, definitely not my favorite from the comics because there are some really sick characters, but he was pretty great and looked damn cool. Number 8. Iron Maniac. First appearing in Marvel Team Up Volume 3 Number 2, we got to see an evil Iron Man, which is just swell. Iron Maniac is from a reality where the majority of the Avengers were killed by the alien Titanus since they were disassembled when he attacked. This version took on a Doctor Doom-ish identity to protect the world against a power-hungry Reed Richards. After being transported to our Earth 616 by Reed Richards, he's thrown into battle with our Fantastic Four and other heroes and continues to fight them after gaining control of the LMD Diamondback. All in all, he's a really cool version of Stark, even if it is a bit frustrating that he insists on being evil. I was kind of hoping he'd have a change of heart, but c'est la vie. Number 7. James Rhodes. Okay, this one's kind of a cheat because he doesn't usually go by Iron Man but rather War Machine, but I just know that I'd get yelled at if I left him off the list. Plus, he did pretend to be Iron Man for a time before the armor messed with his brain. Rhodey took over as Iron Man for a time when Tony's alcohol problem caused him to be incapable of wielding the Iron Man suit responsibly. After being successful in his first stint with the suit, Stark suggested that he remain as Iron Man while Tony relaxed. And he was a pretty sick Iron Man. Sure, he didn't have the sarcastic charm that makes me love Tony, but he still did a pretty bang up job. Number 6. Zombie Iron Man. This Tony Stark of Earth 2149 was turned into a zombie by the recently zombified Fantastic Four. He then went on to fight against Silver Surfer with the other zombie heroes, being imbued with the power Cosmic after chomping into the big guy. Then he later helps to defeat Galactus and later the Skrulls before consuming the Skrull planet. While not the most imaginative version, since the whole world was full of zombie heroes, it's always endlessly entertaining to watch our favorite heroes chowing down as zombie Galacti. Number 5. Iron Goblin. This was a really neat version that I think many of you may not have heard of. In a Secret Wars Warzone version of Spider Island, Stark was mutated and turned into a minion of the Spider Queen, until Venom sprays him with the Green Goblin formula. While this frees him from the Queen's power, it also slowly turns him insane, as it did with Norman Osborn. After modifying the Goblin armor and becoming the Iron Goblin, he helps the Resistance until he's forced to sacrifice himself to save the others. As sad as this was, it allowed him to end his life on his own terms before the Goblin formula had taken over his brain completely, so it wasn't all bad. Number 4. Iron Man 1602. In this 17th century story, we see the Lord Iron taken captive during the English-Spanish War. He's tortured by David Banner, who would later become Hulk, and forced to make weapons for his captors, wearing a massive set of armor to survive. With the armor, powered by lightning bottles, he has super strength and invulnerability, and many electric weapons, as you would expect from any Iron Man. He's eventually sent to fight against the Witch Breed in the New World, but he decides that peace is the better option, and ends up using his armor to power a printing press. Hey, progress is progress. Number 3. Galactic.P.O.O.L. Galactic.P.O.O.L is certainly one of the more epic versions of Deadpool, as he's the Galactus-inspired version. Even though this guy is huge and speaks very properly, if you look past the grandiosity, you see the same old attitude. Just this one line makes Galactic.P.O.O.L a classic for me. Galactic.P.O.O.L's cosmic appetites demand great sacrifice. Though this world dies, I know that I too suffer. For a moment on the lips doth equate to a lifetime on the hips. It's so good. He's later killed by Lady Deadpool when she crashes the Deadpool Corps ship, hilariously called the B. Arthur, into his head. Just one of many deaths at the hand of B. Arthur. Don't let her kindly exterior fool you. She's one crazy Number 2. AVATAARS Iron Man. In the miniseries AVATAARS Covenant of the Shield, the Iron Man of Earth was Ironheart, a champion of the realm with a huge set of armor which gave him incredible strength. This is probably one of the most straight up badass Iron Mans out there, just this hulking Goliath who smashes heads in a fantastical world. He fights a fair bit against the 6 most sinister, fighting Sandstorm, who's Sandman, and later Iron Cross. As many of you know, I really love the AVATAARS storyline, and Ironheart was definitely one of my favorite characters. Number 1. Age of X Iron Man. While still named Iron Man in this series, Tony prefers the name Steel Corpse, which is just morbid as hell. This is because in this reality he was infected by a disease supposedly of mutant origin that caused him to be bonded with his armor permanently, with his flesh slowly being consumed by his armor. He joins the Avengers in trying to exterminate the mutants, but when an emergency override causes the suit to try to kill a group of children, he demands that Captain America end his life, which the Cap reluctantly does. This was such a cool story and really quite sad, but it was really a matter of time for him anyway. At least he was able to choose when he went. Number 10. Major Deadpool, otherwise known as Major Frowny Face. While it's always fun to see Deadpool goofing around, sometimes it's also interesting to see him take on a rare serious role. This Deadpool of Earth 6466 lives in a reality where Mexico, the US, and Canada had merged, forming the United States of North America. In this reality, his skin is clear and doesn't appear to have his patented healing factor, which is strange, but it's pretty nice to see him kick butt like a normal person for once. I wouldn't want to read a whole series about him, but it's funny to watch Deadpool annoying the crap out of himself. Number 9. Deadman Wade. Deadman Wade is the Wade Wilson of Earth 295, and it's one of the chief assassins of Apocalypse, later becoming one of his Pale Riders. He's a masochist obsessed with feeling pain, which his sadistic teammate Danielle Moonstar is happy to provide. He was later recruited by Dreadpool to join the evil Deadpool Corps. Deadman Wade is one of the stranger versions of Deadpool, not only because of the extreme masochism thing, but Wade's usual lighthearted jokes and sarcasm are replaced by the sad and confused used version. While I wouldn't want him to become a series regular, it's interesting to see how different Wade's reaction to his condition could have been if he wasn't so mind-numbingly positive about everything. Number 8. KETCH. KETCH is the Earth 10330 version of Wade Wilson. He's a young boy at the Xavier Orphanage for Troubled Boys, who finds himself something of an outcast because of his troublemaking and overall annoyingness. Shocker. In one story, he talked Scott Summers into escaping detention so they could go to the prom, and he could hook up with Jean Grey, who attended the all-girls school. After he caused a bunch of trouble at the dance, picking fights with Logan and pretty much everyone, our Deadpool appears and recruits Kidpool to Deadpool Corps. It's kind of funny when you realize that Kidpool isn't really any more juvenile than the normal Deadpool, but that's because our Wade has all the maturity of a level 3 Caterpie. Number 7. Molech. Soon after Johnny Blaze was defeated by Daniel Ketch, Molech came to ask for his assistance in finding the remaining Ghost Riders before their powers could be taken by Ketch. This Middle Eastern Ghost Rider was quite skilled with a sword and was an influential part of the Zadkiel story arc. While he was eventually killed by Ketch, his spirit went on to defend heaven and eventually helped to defeat Zadkiel. Molech's often overlooked, but he was a rather important part of the comics, having convinced Blaze to keep fighting the good fight. Number 6. Franken Deadpool. Okay, I know his name is really Evil Deadpool, but I stand by the idea that Franken Deadpool would have been a better name. This evil version of Deadpool originated on Earth 616, when a bunch of pieces cut off of the real Deadpool over the years were thrown into a dumpster. Their healing factor caused them to fuse together. Lacking the conscience of the original Deadpool, Evil Deadpool is a mean and murderous dude and causes a bunch of problems, especially when fighting for Dreadpool in the Evil Deadpool Corps. While he's not quite as funny as Deadpool, he still has a lot of his personality and humor, which is made funnier by the fact that he's otherwise super evil. Plus he has 2 right hands, which is just spectacular. Number 5. Wolverine Pool. The Wade Wilson of Earth 1946 was put through the Weapon X program and had his skeleton bonded with adamantium, giving him the regeneration factor and the claws of Wolverine. This is the perfect combination of 2 of the coolest Canadians in comics. Wow, my alliteration game is on point. Wolverine Pool is recruited by Deadpool and joins the evil Deadpool Corps and helps to fight against the real Deadpool Corps in one of my favorite team versus team battles in all of Marvel. So many Deadpools. Number 4. Deadpool. Like DEADPOOL, not just normal Deadpool. It's hard to make it clear that you're using an acronym when you're talking. Anyway, this Deadpool is the combination of MODOK and Deadpool and stands for Destructive Engine of Assassination Despite Panpygoptosis Obsessed with Opponent Liquidation. Oh man, I got that on the first try. It's actually a pretty funny name because Panpygoptosis means short legs, and just look at those things. It's super fitting that the acronym of a Deadpool version would be hilarious, and while he's defeated pretty quickly, I just think he looks so ridiculous and his name is too clever to leave out.
Moving on to number 3, Danielle Cage. Captain America has always had a great respect for Luke Cage. So it's kinda neat that in this alternate universe, Luke's daughter, Danielle Cage, would take up the Captain America mantle. From Earth 15061, Danielle has not only inherited the powers of her parents Luke and Jessica Jones, but she's also become a member of the Avengers. So with the strength and invulnerability of her father, combined with the superhuman strength, durability, and flight of her mother, needless to say, Danielle is a version of Cap that any villain would find difficult to take on.
Number 2. Deadpool. Deadpool is probably one of the best known versions of Deadpool, as he's made quite a few appearances alongside our own Wade. Deadpool is a version of Deadpool from Earth 2149 who was infected by a virus that turned him into a zombie. His body ended up getting chucked into the fan of a swamp boat, but the head lived on. He takes the whole Merc with a mouth thing a bit too far, becoming, as he puts it, the Merc with only a mouth. No guns, no healing factor, no limbs, no problem. Number 1. Lady Deadpool. Also known as Boobs, because of course she is. This one's probably no surprise to the Deadpool fans out there. Lady Deadpool is one of the most famous versions of the Merc. Wanda Wilson is the female version of Wade from Earth 3010. Wanda fought for the rebel group against the loyalist army of General America, who knew her from a past battle where he had lost his arm. I talked about that in alternate Captain America Part 2. My goodness, we've gone meta. She's a great character. Lady Deadpool is just as sassy and hilarious as her male counterpart, plus I feel less confused when I check her out in a tight outfit compared to checking out Wade, which I totally don't do often.